Australian Aviation Podcast, the official podcast of Australian Aviation, unpacking the latest insights, developments and issues impacting Australia's aviation sector.
Hello and welcome to the Australian Aviation Podcast. I'm Jake Nelson. Now, my usual co-host, David Hollingworth, Deputy Editor of Cyber Daily, I hardly even know a daily, isn't with us today, but we do have in the studio, back for her second time, our graduate journalist, Bethany Alvaro. Bethany, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
The podcast host's so nice, we had to get her on twice.
What can I say?
How does it feel to be back?
Good. It was a busy week last week. Wasn't here at all, so we're back.
Yes. Now, you're at the Indo-Pac exhibition, the big defense show, weren't you? That's mostly maritime, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a lot of boats and
boats.
Pretty much.
What do
boats,
we care?
Yeah. But yeah, it was my first
Wake me up when they invent a flying, but oh no, they have those.
Yeah. I've never been to one of those kind of conferences, expositions, so it was cool.
Did you find anything interesting aviation related among all of the boat stuff?
There was a drone.
Okay. Yes.
That's been selected for the Wide Area Airborne Surveillance Program.
Please enlighten us. We love drones here.
Yeah. So the Melbourne startup Arceus, I'm pretty sure is how you pronounce them, was chosen by the Army to be a part of that program that uses, it's their drone. It's called the Hyperspectral Optical Radar drone.
That does sound fancy.
Yeah. It's an AI-powered intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance sensor that is going to be used for surveillance by the Army. So, yeah.
Well, I'm glad to know that there was exactly one thing in that whole exhibition that was in any way worthwhile to
pretty much
at all. And I heard there were some protests out there. Did you run into the protesters?
I didn't see them. I didn't see them. I think they were there on the first day, but then by the second and third day, the police presence was a lot heavier. Like you could kind of feel it. So yeah, I don't know. Didn't see them.
Well, yes, we didn't have a regular episode last week because Bethany was out of the office and David was busy. I believe he's busy again today. And I was also out of the office, frantically working. I shouldn't say frantically, diligently working on the next issue of the Australian Aviation magazine, which should be coming out closer to the end of the year. But we are here today. Last week, of course, if you are a regular listener and you were listening to us on Spotify or on our website platform, we had an interview with 16-year-old Byron Waller, the teen pilot down under, who completed a massive journey all around the world. So he flew in a light plane. I think it was like a 67-day journey all around the globe.
Wow.
So he was supported by flight instructors, but so started out in I think Brisbane and flew west. Saw the Middle East and Iceland and the Grand Canyon. Yeah, he did like a flyover of the Grand Canyon.
I was doing that when I was 16.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of puts our lives into perspective, doesn't it?
A bit, yeah. I don't know. I feel like, wow. How do you even learn to fly a plane when you're 16? Do you have school?
Yeah, I mean, there's,
maybe it's a flight lesson.
There's like flying instructors. Well, like a couple of years beforehand, he's had sort of chronic health problems and, Crohn's disease among them. And he was in his hospital bed and he, decided that he wanted to learn to fly. And so when he started to, that sort of gave him a bit of motivation.
Yeah.
And he learned to fly and he circumnavigated Australia at 14 and then, set off at 15. And circumnavigated the globe, landed when he was 16. His birthday for him only lasted like 7 hours or so because he was flying west across the international date line at the time.
That's really cool.
That is dedication.
Wow. I feel like I should have been doing that.
And of course, he wants a career in aviation. And frankly, if any airline doesn't take Byron after doing that, Qantas, Virgin, Jetstar, give him a call. He's free. He's not free. He's got school.
He's got the HSC to do.
Yeah, he's got school. But after that, he'll be free, and he's already had plenty of experience.
Got the resume ready.
Now we've had a bit of an interesting email. call from Peter talking about Toowoomba. As you will recall from the last episode, David is the rightful king of Toowoomba, so it's unfortunate that he is not here. But Peter says, I subscribe to your magazine. I get excited when I see airlines announce new routes. I'm a resident and regular business traveller in Toowoomba, Queensland, who would like to fly out of Toowoomba more as getting to Brisbane is difficult due to the traffic. The Bonza model worked well for flights to Melbourne. I have sent emails to Qantas, Virgin and Jetstar to offer more flights without success. Qantas only flies 5 times a week and still uses the Q400. That's the little Dash 8 turboprop. I fly to North Queensland a lot and Qantas uses the E190. Why can't we get more flights and better aircraft from Wellcamp, which has a world-class airport? Toowoomba has 140,000 residents, a big feeder community. I don't understand why the airlines don't offer us more flights. From what I've read, Bonza failed because 777 took all the money out of Bonza. The business model was sound. And yeah, it's sort of this is another example of the hole that's been left behind by the collapse of Bonza, because Bonza was doing flights to Toowoomba. I'll just check if they did flights between Toowoomba and Melbourne. I think so. But it's one of the significant inland cities in northeast Queensland. It has a swanky sort of new-ish airport. And yet, now there's basically, I looked it up, the only 2 airlines that are serving it are Qantas, Link, and Rex. So Bonza did fly from between Melbourne and Toowoomba, and they used 737s. And, for that brief period, Bonza, there were 737 services between Toowoomba and Melbourne, but now there are not. Go back to the Qantas Link Q400s.
I think a lot of people would be disconnected then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Access to wherever they need to go.
Yeah, 100%. That's one of the big problems with the collapse of Bonza. I mean, Sunshine Coast Airport was one of Bonza's main bases, and it took a massive hit when Bonza collapsed, because suddenly there were a whole bunch of flights and services that Bonza was operating that it just wasn't anymore.
Yeah.
But Toowoomba, it's originally I think it was Brisbane West Wellcamp Airport. It was called, and they people complained, and the name was changed because technically is west of Brisbane, but like 100 kilometers west. Yeah. So it's tricky for people who live in places like Toowoomba, who need to get somewhere to Melbourne. They need to go through Brisbane, or they need to go down through Sydney.
Would it be classified as a regional city?
Oh, yeah, it is a regional city. Yeah. There was a lot of there were some Bonza routes that were very, very popular, surprisingly popular. I think Sunshine Coast to Albury-Wodonga was one of them. Oh, you wouldn't expect it. And services to Mildura are also very popular. And they were finding all these routes that nobody else was trying. And now there have been a few ex-Bonza routes that Jetstar has jumped on top of. I think Sunshine Coast to Cairns is one of them. Yeah. And I think there's a few sort of people, Jetstar, I think, picking up some Whitsunday Coast services as well. Don't quote me on that. But it's left a big gap and, a big catchment area. I think Toowoomba, the catchment area of Wellcamp is like 340,000 people. And it's tough for those 340,000 people to get where they need to go. Yeah.
Damn, they probably, they've got their careers and families and stuff that they probably want to see and need those services to get to.
Yeah, exactly. So it's important satellite city for Brisbane. And I think Brisbane, sort of interestingly enough, is, aside from Melbourne, the closest city in Australia at the moment to having kind of multiple airports, because Melbourne's got Avalon, which we'll be touching on a bit later, and Sydney is going to get WSI. Yeah. But, Brisbane, sort of around Brisbane, you've got, it's 100 clicks to the west, but you've got Toowoomba, you've got the Sunshine Coast, you've got the Gold Coast, and you've got Brisbane Airport itself. So southeast Queensland is pretty decently covered by airports. But having an airport, having a swanky airport in a city like Toowoomba doesn't mean a lot if you're not getting flights to it.
Yeah, true. Wow. Place to be.
Sorry?
Place to be, Toowoomba.
Yeah. We'll have to get David to sort it out as the rightful king. Now, on the subject of WSI, we did actually have an interesting and surprisingly insightful comment on our Facebook page. I know, first time for everything. But someone did point out in terms of WSI that it will make international to domestic connections a lot easier. Mm-hmm. And I think Simon Hickey the CEO of WSI was saying to us, possibly the fastest domestic to international connections on the East Coast,
wow.
at least of major airports, because it's the one terminal.
Yeah.
If you want to go from domestic to international or vice versa at Sydney, Kingsford
It's a bit of a hassle.
Yeah, you got to grab an Uber or a taxi or go down to the train or whatever. But in WSI, because it's all in the same building, and they've got those swing gates that can switch between domestic and international when they need to.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm excited for that to open.
Cool. I've been up there a couple of times. If you get the chance, you should head up there because it is pretty cool. I don't know if they're doing any more tours, but they had the first jet landing and they had a tour in August. It was basically almost finished in August, and you'll find out more about that in the next issue of Australian Aviation magazine because we'll have a big article with lots of pictures. But there's the escalators are in, all the fittings are done. The shops aren't in yet, obviously, the retail and stuff. But you've got space for lounges, you've got the gates done, you've got the check-in kiosks, the bag drop, the security lines. They've even had the screens on the walls with like mock-up,
really?
departure itineraries.
I love that. That's cute. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be a very good thing for Sydney. Just connecting and the jobs as well. The amount of people that it's going to help. I don't know. I think it's a very good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we, of course, touched on this last time.
Yeah.
But there we go. Well, listen, we should start getting into the news before they start menacingly shaking at their fist at us from behind the production desk. Some of the big news that has come out over the last couple of weeks, this was just at the end of last week, actually. We got our first glimpse of Qantas's first Project Sunrise aircraft. This A350-1000 ULR that's supposed to be delivered later next year. It has come off an assembly line. We did say the assembly line initially, but it was an assembly line, and I think that's the main thing. It's come off the line at the Airbus plant in Toulouse. It's got all of its major airframe components now in place. Forwards, center, rear fuselage. The wings are on. The tail is on. The landing gear is on. Now they've got to put the instruments in. They've got to put the engines on. Very important part of any plane. Ahead of the flight testing, which is supposed to begin next year. Are you terribly familiar with Project Sunrise?
I know that I want to be on it, and
who doesn't
want to be on the plane. But other than that, not entirely.
Yeah, so it's part of this, big ambition by Qantas that started under Alan Joyce of having non-stop flights from the East Coast, so Sydney, Melbourne, possibly Brisbane down the line, to London and New York. And they'll be using these specially fitted A350-1000 ULRs, ultra long range, that will have I think larger and or extra fuel tanks that will help make the journey. And I think that the number of seats is going to be smaller to help lighten the load. And it's all special cabin configurations to ease the effects of jet lag. Because it's like upwards of 20 hours non-stop in the air.
Yeah. How do you think you would go on that? Like that long of a flight?
Ooh, sort of depends, really. What class am I sitting in? I mean, even the economy class is supposed to be pretty nice as far as economy class goes.
Yeah.
Obviously, you'd have to, get up and stretch. And there's wellness zones that will have yoga videos playing and fresh fruit and water and things like that. How well do you think you'd go?
I think I'd be okay, to be honest. I went to New York a few years ago, and I think it was the first, an early time of when the New York to Auckland started.
Yeah, the Qantas
and it was the Dreamliners. And I remember going on the plane, and I'd never been on one of the new kind of planes for the long haul flights, and I noticed such a difference, in economy obviously. It was just the seats you could feel the seats were a lot bigger. It was very clean and nice. I don't know. I think I'd be okay.
Yeah, well, it says here up to 22 hours non-stop. So there's an extra 20,000-litre rear center fuel tank, enhanced systems. There'll be more space for passengers. So 238 seats versus 300 plus from other A350-1000 operators. And they'll have this well-being zone with integrated stretch handles.
Oh,
fancy. Guided on-screen exercise programs, a hydration station, and a range of refreshments.
There you go.
You'd have to hope the in-flight movie selection was good.
Surely.
Yeah.
I think Qantas could do a lot better with their movies.
Probably.
Yeah. I feel like they're missing some good ones.
Yeah, well, I'd seen, I think on one Qantas flight or another, Star Trek Lower Decks, but it was like, I'd been wanting to watch that, and it's not on Amazon Prime anymore. Thanks, Paramount. But it was like a later season, and it's like, why would I want to...
Yeah, they always have like one season. Or
one
like
season that's
episodes.
not even the first one.
Yeah.
So, Qantas, make sure you beef up your in-flight entertainment before you launch these Project Sunrise flights, or you might have a riot on your hands. I mean, I suppose they'll be fitted with Wi-Fi, so if it's, fast enough, you can do your own streaming.
True, yeah. I wonder how, if people will be receptive to that long of flying. I'm not
that's
sure.
the thing. That's the big bet that Qantas is making.
Yeah.
I think the idea is it's pitched at people who want to get to London and New York as quickly as possible without having to mess around with a stopover in the middle.
Yeah.
So I think largely sort of the business travel market. But of course that's sort of been not as big as it used to be lately because of, everyone's moving to Zoom calls and such now. So yeah, it's a big gamble. It's a big gamble that Qantas is taking, that people would be wanting those things. But I mean, the PR hit from being the first airline in the world to do these ultra long haul flights has got to be worth something.
Surely, yeah.
Well, we're going to go for our first quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk a bit more about the week's news. Don't go anywhere. All right, welcome back. This is the Australian Aviation Podcast. Jake Nelson here with Bethany Alvaro. Talking, as we did earlier, of Avalon Airport. I don't remember, have we spoken about Avalon Airport on the podcast before?
I don't think so.
Have you ever flown into Avalon?
I haven't, no. I'm not really... Haven't been to Melbourne too much. Only a couple times.
It's a lovely, it's a nice enough city. I go down there every year with my partner. But we always fly into Tullamarine because it is closer than Avalon. And generally, sorry Avalon, nicer. But Avalon Airport is currently only served by Jetstar and Fly Pelican. Fly Pelican recently launched some services to Canberra, but Jetstar has announced this major expansion out of Avalon Airport where they will bring back international services. So I don't recall if Jetstar had itself flown internationally from Avalon before, but other airlines had. And those, so it had AirAsia services, and I think it had CityLink. So AirAsia to AirAsia X to Kuala Lumpur, CityLink to Denpasar, Bali.
Yeah.
And those were scuppered by COVID-19. So they ended in early 2020. And since then, there have been no international flights out of Avalon at all. But Jetstar has now announced that they will be flying next March from Avalon to Bali. So they will be replacing that old CityLink service using their A321neo LRs. That'll be 5 times a week starting on the 23rd of March. There will also be new services to Adelaide 7 times per week from the 26th. And they're going to be bumping up their Brisbane to Avalon services.
Yeah. I feel like to Bali, and that would be a popular flight.
Jetstar loves flying to Bali.
Yeah.
There's I think at least 10 or 11 Jetstar services to Bali from Australian cities. I mean they've also sort of announced one that's going from Sunshine Coast to Singapore via Bali.
Wow.
Which is an interesting
that's
choice.
A choice. Yeah.
But this is serving. So Avalon is sort of Melbourne's second international airport and will be again when these Jetstar services start.
Yeah.
But it's also serving kind of the west of Melbourne and the Geelong area. And that's sort of the major catchment area. And we've spoken to Avalon Airport, back under the former CEO Tony Brun. We spoke a couple of years back, basically saying Avalon waving its hands going, we're here, if you want to fly here, come in. We've got so much space, fill your boots. Because, this was shortly after Bonza went under, and Bonza had operated quite a few services to Avalon. And so Jetstar has been kind of ramping up out of Avalon recently.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of, if you're wanting to fly to another city, if that's not Canberra, it's kind of the only game in town out of Avalon. It'd be probably good to get more airlines like Virgin Australia or whatever going to Avalon as well. But so they're really stepping things up in Avalon.
I think it's good that all of these like non-CBD airports are starting to get more attention and more love to them. Like, Western Sydney, Toowoomba, and Avalon. Like, there's a lot of people everywhere, and they need to get places as well. I think it's good.
And that was a lot of Bonds' business model as well, was connecting these point-to-point services, skipping the major cities and just flying from regional place to regional place.
Yeah.
You have some airlines that kind of do that a little. Like, you've got Rex, which flies a lot of regional services. Obviously, you've got Air North up north. You've got Nexus out west. There's a few airlines that fly regionally. But Melbourne is really, at the moment, the only city in Australia that has more than one commercial airport, because Avalon is still, technically serving Melbourne.
Yeah.
And so it's it needs more traffic. And it's good to have those options for if you, for whatever reason, don't want to go to Tullamarine, or if you're going to Geelong, or if you're going to somewhere that's poorly served out of Tullamarine's kind of catchment area.
Yeah.
Or if you just want like a cheaper alternative.
Yeah.
I remember I flew into Avalon years and years and years ago because it was cheaper than going to Tullamarine, but it turned out that getting from Avalon to Melbourne was really expensive anyway.
How far out of Melbourne is it?
Let me do some live journalism on the air here. Avalon Airport to Melbourne. To Melbourne CBD. So it's about an hour. So 55 kilometers straight shot through, which would be roughly the equivalent for Western Sydney Airport to the CBD of Sydney when that opens. And it's obviously much, much closer to Geelong. It's sort of right there. But another thing that's happening out of Avalon is that with this new Jetstar international service coming along and these ramp-ups of Adelaide and Brisbane, there's going to be some upgrades at the airport itself. So they're going to be adding 1,000 new seats in the terminals. They're going to be upgrading the runway lighting, putting in new security equipment, new CCTV, control tower, water connections, and extra 500 parking spaces. And the Victorian government's also putting in the first public bus service that will serve Avalon Airport.
That's good.
It doesn't have one at the moment.
Yeah.
The nearest train station is Lara, which is like, I think, a few kilometers away. But that does not have any public transit connections yet. If you want to get into the Melbourne CBD at the moment, you have to sort of get a cab or an Uber or take the Sky Bus, which does serve Avalon.
Yeah.
And that's, about a 45-minute to an hour trip. But this Route 18 bus service is going to be going to Lara Station, which is on the Geelong line, and you can take the train into Geelong or back up into Melbourne.
It's a lot cheaper probably as well.
Probably, yeah. And we spoke a year or two ago when we spoke to Avalon, they said, we would love to have more public transport connections as well. They were Tony Braun, again, the former CEO, was talking about a new train station on the Melbourne to Geelong line, and then a dead straight road from the terminal to that train station, and connecting it from day one with a bus and or trackless tram.
Yeah, sounds like a good plan.
And by the way, trackless tram, that's just a bus. Come on, that's just a long bus.
It's a fancy way to say a bus.
Its station. But there you go. Avalon Airport is set for a major boost, 330,000 Jetstar seats per year.
Wow.
Maybe this will help better put Avalon on the map.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think. Get in the comments. Drop an email to our media inbox. Be interested to see your thoughts on Avalon. Moving right along, you might recall that last time we spoke about the Air T-Rex deal.
I remember this one.
Yes, Air T snapping up Rex in its mighty jaws to create I mean, it probably won't be called that, but we would hope it would be called Air T-Rex because
Copyright
come on,
it here.
it's sitting right there. You know, it's there for the taking. So the administrators have confirmed in their report that ordinary unsecured creditors, which is airport suppliers, ground handling agents, under the terms of the proposed sale, they will get nothing.
Okay.
So a lot of the proceeds from the sale, I think, will be going to pay back, secured creditors like the government, and going to priority unsecured creditors, which include former and current employees. So, unpaid wages have to be sorted out before you pay the suppliers. And this deal, the administrators have basically recommended, even ordinary unsecured creditors who won't get a red cent, have basically said, look, it's still a better deal than you'll get under a liquidation scenario because it's no worse than that, A, and B, if this purchase goes ahead, at least you will still have a business relationship with the new entity. Whereas if Rex is allowed to, fall over and be liquidated, suddenly you've lost all that traffic. But there is some good news on the horizon, which is that the government has stepped in to help at least the airports out. So the government is setting up a $5 million relief program for regional airports that supported Rex, and these airports are owed between $45,000 and $650,000.
Okay.
And so these airports are going to be getting sort of relief funding from the government, as opposed to getting stuff out of the Rex deal. And the government is also, there's been some concerns that like Air T might, want to take the planes, ship them off to America and strip them for parts. But the government has basically said, no, we will retain our security over Rex's planes.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah, so you can't sell these planes without us saying you can.
That's a good thing to clarify in the deal.
Yeah, absolutely. There's going to be $90 million already owed to the government is going to be carried forward in a profit sharing arrangement. So the government will be taking a piece of Rex's profits until that loan is repaid. There will also be another $60 million loan to help with engine care and maintenance in bringing more of these Saab 340Bs back into service. The terms of the deal, by the way, it's $172.5 million that Air T would be paying for Rex. $50 million will be used to recapitalize the business, including bringing back Saabs. So I think about 14 Saabs they will be looking to bring back into service. So from 30 up to 44. Presumably they can't bring them all back. A lot of them possibly would have been too heavily cannibalized. But more Saabs flying after the deal than beforehand. And I think that is...
It's a good thing.
That's a good thing, yeah. And it's a good thing that the government is, taking these steps to make sure that Air T holds up its end of the bargain and keeps Rex flying.
Yeah, there's good accountability. Yeah.
And you haven't flown Rex.
I have not.
But I'm sure you agree that, and as we were saying earlier, that these regional airports need these services. Yeah,
fully. It's, there's a lot of people in Australia, and a lot of people don't live in the CBDs and the big cities. And I think it's, I don't know, I'm very supportive of, helping out everyone, not just people in the cities. So I think it's a very good thing.
Have you considered running for office?
Maybe one day. Maybe.
Bethany for PM, I can see it. I'd vote for you.
Thank you.
Now this was a story that you had a look at today, and this was something from the Oz.
Yes.
Apparently, Australia's flight attendants are looking for a better deal in their pay packets.
Yep. So they've put an application to the Fair Work Commission to increase their pay from. Well, let me get the numbers. From $1,012 a week to $1,203 a week.
And that's the
for the entry level base pay. Because of their responsibility as flight attendants isn't just serving drinks and serving food. It's everything else. It's all the increased security on planes and the emergency responses to not plane-related issues. You know what I mean? It's passenger issues and social and customer relations pretty much. And the lack of rest breaks aren't adequate enough. And it was recently staffing requirements have reduced. So it's one flight attendant for every 50 passengers. So on domestic flights, that is, it goes down a lot. The Oz reported that, where was it? On a Virgin flight, there was only 3 crew members for 134 passengers, which
it's not great.
It's not great.
Is it?
No.
I mean, considering that all the work these flight attendants have to do, because I think some of them have been saying as well, since 9/11, it's all about, as well, you got to defend the flight deck with your life. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah. And they're not being paid for that. Pretty much is what the whole thing of it is. The who was he? Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, the industrial relations manager for the Flight Attendants Association of Australia said that at 35,000 feet, flight attendants are expected to act as paramedics, police officers, firefighters, medical professionals, and carers, yet their pay and conditions don't reflect this reality.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the number one duty of a flight attendant is safety.
Yeah.
Like, that's what the flight attendants are really there for. Mm-hmm. I mean, serving drinks and biscuits and, reheated chicken casseroles.
Yeah.
That's part of what they do. But the main reason that they are there is to keep the passengers safe.
Yeah.
And they should be paid enough to reflect that,
exactly,
particularly if their staffing numbers are going down.
Yeah. Well, 3 crew members for 134 passengers. Imagine if there was, touch wood, but imagine if there was an emergency and 3 people can't take care of that many people properly. It's I see the point that they're making with that. So hopefully that will get reflected. But Qantas has, been disputing with their pays for a while. So who knows?
I think as well the Regional Aviation Association has been trying to push for an exemption to this stuff on regional flights. And we've that was in the Oz story as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. So the big airlines, they're covered by an enterprise agreement. So that's their conditions, their pays. But the regional smaller ones, they're under the award.
Yeah.
So it's not really, they don't get as much flexibility with it.
Yeah, and we've spoken about this a few times, but regional airlines, the profit margins can be razor thin.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of understandable that they'd want a bit of flexibility on that.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it just I suppose depends on can they get this balance between between ensuring that passengers are safe and ensuring that the people who do all this hard work are well paid enough.
Yeah.
Can they balance that with, making sure that the airline can still turn a profit?
Well, I guess that's the question, because if people aren't going to be getting paid and if they know that they're not going to get a great pay, they might not even apply, and then you have neither. So,
and I mean, it's sort of you've got this situation now in the United States with the air traffic controllers where they've been getting paid nothing during the shutdown. I think they're supposed to get back paid after the shutdown ends, but they've been going into work every day and not getting a paycheck at the end of it. And, having to, and, there's been staffing cuts and equipment is outdated and they're working, grueling hours for no money to keep people safe. I mean, it's,
you can see where the contention lies.
It's an admirable thing that they're doing, but it also is not a thing that they should be doing.
I mean, people need to be paid. It's really that simple.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
On that note, we're going to go for one more quick break, but when we come back, we'll be talking a little bit more about the week's news. Okay, welcome back. You're listening to the Australian Aviation Podcast. Now, one topic that's been growing in prominence with aviation is sustainability. And one of the big weapons that airlines and the aviation industry has in its quiver to bring down emissions is SAF, or Sustainable Aviation Fuel. Have you heard a lot about this?
I haven't.
So sustainable aviation fuel is basically it's not unlike the sort of E10 fuel that you would put in your car. It's like a biofuel.
Okay.
That is made from I don't think it's chemically identical, obviously, but it's similar in concept. Basically, you get these biofuels that are made from agricultural byproducts and other similar feedstocks. Cooking oils is another one. And you process them into fuel that can be blended with regular jet fuel. And this, is supposedly will bring down the emissions of the plane. Well, we've had it's sort of consensus among the industry and the government that SAF is the way to go to bring down emissions. But there has been some sort of pushback from in the AFR, Paul Lindwall, a former productivity commissioner, who's basically just said this is greenwashing. It's not a silver bullet to solve our problems. He said, quote, it's an expensive, inefficient distraction from viable alternatives.
Ooh, wow. That's quite the opinion.
Yeah. So what he said was, while proponents tout SAF's renewable origins, large-scale cultivation of feedstocks often leads to deforestation, habitat destruction, and biodiversity loss. Wow. For example, growing crops such as palm oil or corn for biofuels has historically displaced ecosystems, releasing vast amounts of carbon dioxide. Moreover, the energy-intensive processing and transport of these materials can result in life cycle emissions that rival those of conventional jet fuel. He says SAF's life cycle emissions are not universally lower than fossil fuels. Its production could exacerbate environmental harm when land use changes are accounted for. This push for feedstock at large scale could also reduce food security, threaten labor and human rights, and promote further deforestation.
Wow. I mean, I think that's the whole thing of a lot of the whole green and environmental perspective on things. It's like if you have to buy everything new and make everything new to be sustainable, it's like, how sustainable is it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean that's sort of part of the debate around electric cars as well. I think because if how much work and how much carbon and how much pollution goes into making the cars and making the batteries and mining the lithium and everything, what sort of more ecologically friendly alternatives are there?
Yeah.
Electric cars still probably better in the long run than petrol.
Yeah.
But how much better and how long does it take to sort of match that?
Yeah.
Lindwall says that SAF's production is more than twice as expensive as traditional jet fuel refining. So obviously there's government subsidies, there's tax breaks, SAF mandates. So yes, this idea of you have to put this much SAF in your fuel.
Yeah.
But he says it basically, it's a perfect storm for corporate rent seeking. Companies will be lobbying for public funds while delivering negligible climate benefits. He says, quote, these subsidies risk turning SAF into a boondoggle that enriches a few at the expense of taxpayers without delivering meaningful environmental returns.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I guess that's like, it's very sad. It's like if the people who are paying for it, the taxpayers, are being told it's going to be helpful for the environment and it's just causing more harm. I don't think people would be happy with that.
Well, it's... I mean, you've got these airlines as well, like Qantas and Virgin. I think both are offering carbon offset programs.
Yes.
Do you ever buy these carbon offsets when you fly?
No. I mean, it's already expensive enough. I think that's what, they need to consider. It's like the everyday traveler, the everyday person who's flying isn't going to be wanting to spend more as much as we want to help the environment. It's like everything's expensive if everything costs money. So
yeah, and there's debate as well about how effective carbon offsets actually are. How much carbon can you offset by planting some trees or whatever?
Yeah.
So it's tricky. Sustainability is tricky. And Lindwall is saying the aviation industry should not be pushed. He says, I think he's basically saying it's a mistake to try and push each industry to individually reach net zero, that there should be sort of a whole of economy solution. Jet engines require a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And it is harder to decarbonize. So what he says is, Instead of forcing aviation to achieve net zero through costly and inefficient measures such as SAF, we should focus resources on sectors where reductions are more achievable and cheaper. For example, he says, a continued focus on improving aircraft and engine efficiency is a more pragmatic way to reduce aviation's carbon impact. Technological advances in aerodynamics, materials, engine design are critical to building on previous gains. McKinsey estimated that airlines reduced their fuel consumption per passenger kilometre by about 39% between 2005 and 2019. And, you know, that's an important way that airlines and aviation is reducing emissions.
Yeah.
These new, more efficient engines burn less fuel. Like the E190 E2 was able to, you know, into a headwind, flying to Perth, was able to get to Perth no problem from Canberra with fuel left over to spare.
Yeah.
And the more efficient we can make planes and the less fuel they burn, obviously the less emissions that there will be.
Yeah.
I do think that SAF should be part of the toolkit. If we can find a way to bring down the price and make it more efficient, more effective to produce, you know, reduce the environmental impact that its production has.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think?
I mean, maybe it's like it would be good to have it as part of, like you said, part of the toolkit, but not the whole solution, you know. It's
not
like,
a silver bullet.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And just work on, you know, what you have now instead of creating something new, buying something new, using new things. Look at what, you know, we've already got and see how we can improve that before jumping to a new solution that is, you know, just is more harmful than beneficial by the sounds of it, you know.
I think it's sort of it's a matter for debate, you know, how effective SAF will be, and there probably need to be more studies and, you know, more real world usage of it before we can really come to a conclusion as to how effective it will be. I think it's, if we can find a way to make it more to produce it more sustainably, it should be an arrow in the quiver. And, you know, instead of just using straight jet fuel, start putting some of that SAF in there to bring down the overall. But, you know, don't put all your eggs in the SAF basket, basically.
Like, I think any effort for, you know, more sustainable transport, travel, or in any industry is a good thing. But if it comes at the cost of not only environmental impacts, but like you were saying, like labor and workforce and human rights issues as well, it's like, I don't know, you maybe need to reassess it and look for a better way.
We have time for one more story, and on the subject of new solutions for sustainability, Air New Zealand has begun trials of its first all-electric cargo aircraft.
Ooh.
If you have a look on the website,
it's such a cute little plane.
Yeah, it's adorable, isn't it? The Beta Alia CX300. Now that arrived in the country in October, and it started this proving program from Hamilton Airport. By the end of January, it's going to be flying across the Cook Strait from Wellington to Blenheim. I don't know how to pronounce that. Kiwi listeners, get in the comments. But by the end of January, it's going to be doing those. And it's essentially, this is a battery electric aircraft that's, you know, it only has the emissions that from charging it, essentially, which is, you know, a lot less than an aircraft that would be using traditional aviation fuel or even, you know, I don't know, like the sort of fuel that you'd use in turboprops, let alone jet fuel. So you charge up the plane and you fly it, and it's, you know, as close to zero emissions as it makes. According to Nikhil Ravishankar, who's the new chief executive of Air New Zealand, 60% of regional flights in the country are less than 350 kilometres, and around 85% of the country's electricity is renewable. So essentially, New Zealand is the perfect laboratory, he says, for these next generation aircraft. And it's going to be... this trial is going to allow the regulators to sort of better understand how the aircraft works, what new regulatory environment might be needed. Initially, this thing is going to be flying NZ Post cargo services, so, you know, flying letters and parcels around. But Electric aviation has been sort of gaining more and more prominence, whether that's battery electric or hydrogen electric, because you've got companies like Stralis. I think you've covered Stralis a bit.
Yes, I did a while ago.
Companies like Stralis, companies like Dovetail, they're working on hydrogen solutions, and this beta earlier is a battery solution. Batteries, of course, one of the problems with them is they are heavy.
Yeah.
But as battery technology continues to advance, that would bring the weight down.
Yeah.
Would you fly in an electric?
I probably would.
Plane?
Yeah, I think I would. I would wonder though, like if it, they come to a commercial size plane, like for passengers, the impact of, well, not the impact, but the energy output of charging it, how much that would be. Because it would be less than jet fuel, and like the actual carbon emissions would obviously be zero. But
especially as more renewables are added into the grid.
Exactly. But as like charging, the energy that would cost as well, and it's like I feel like that would be a pricey plane to charge.
Yeah, well, if you look at cars, if you have an electric car versus a petrol car, I think it's like a lot more of the energy that you put into electric cars goes to making the car go forward than with petrol. Because, if you're burning petrol in a car, a lot of it's going to be wasted as heat.
True,
It's going to be, pistons moving up and down and all those things. Electric motors are a lot simpler. There'll be a lot of energy wastage when you're driving a petrol car as compared to an electric car. So how much energy is wasted when you're using jet fuel or, petrol or whatever to fly a plane, as opposed to an electric plane where a lot more of the energy can go to making the propeller spin.
Yeah, true, yeah. I think I would fly on one though. I don't see why
quiet.
not. It would be quiet, yeah. And, as long as the pilot knows how to fly and the engine works, I don't see the issue.
And of course, there's a lot, again, we go back to, it's not just battery electric, hydrogen.
Yeah.
Like hydrogen fuel cells. People are skittish about hydrogen because Hindenburg. But obviously the hydrogen and the hydrogen fuel cells would be used differently and presumably would be a lot safer.
Yeah, you'd hope so.
Yeah, you would hope so. But, hydrogen, I think the only emission that hydrogen fuel cell planes and cars would be putting out is like water vapor.
Yeah.
Essentially. And, again, presumably a lot more energy efficient. So we'll have to keep an eye on how this goes in Air New Zealand, because I don't know if these plans are scuppered by the whole administration, the AT thing, but Rex was planning to retrofit some Saabs with electric motors once those became more viable in this partnership with Dovetail, and fly electric Saabs around.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And I think, Renaissance Partners, who was looking to buy Rex, one of their plans was to, transition Rex to a fleet of electric aircraft. So electric aircraft, especially as more renewables enter the grid, could be a pretty viable solution for connecting regional Australia as well as regional New Zealand.
Oh, that sounds good to me. I'd be on there.
And the Sky Kitten would purr a lot more quietly. And on that happy note, that's about all the time we have for the Australian Aviation Podcast today. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to our lovely co-host, Bethany Alvaro.
Thank you for having me again.
Hopefully we'll be back to a 3-person format next week. But in the meantime, that is all from us at the Australian Aviation Podcast. So until then, from myself and Bethany, goodbye.